Hello and welcome to Rise and Shine with Alissa. I am your hostess, the consultress, here bringing you amazing conversations with entrepreneurs, investors, and parents from around the world that are currently pivoting what they're up to and learning from others. This great world of entrepreneurship, I believe entrepreneurs save the world because we're always looking to create value and solve problems that are on the forefront. And in this age of disruption, having the inside track on someone's way of thinking, way of being, and delivering value in their business is super powerful. So I'm really jazzed and excited here to have Mark Entrekin with me today. Rise and shine. Welcome, Mark. How are you?
Hey, Alyssa, I am doing wonderful. Thanks for asking. It's another beautiful day today.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Okay, so
I
we
like
were
that.
in the green room just before having a lot of fun with music and yeah, baby, I like it like that. Because we're here to just have a live conversation, right? This is not an edited or scripted type of conversation. So first and foremost, what we want to know is what are you passionate about and how does that show up in your life and work?
One of the things I'm very passionate about, Alyssa, and thank you for asking, is making the world a better place. And that seems like, well, you can't do that. That's like winning the lottery and things like that. But if we all work on achieving unity through the power of encouraging, inspiring, and including others personally and professionally, we can change the world one person, 1 minute at a time. There's so many things that have worked in changing the world up to this point, but we have to get off that negativity. Let's get on the positivity and truly charge ourselves with the opportunity to make the world a better place.
And part of this making the world a better place is about being your best self, right? Because we can't make the world a better place by first not being that change ourselves. So when it comes to how you show up in your business life, tell us a little bit about the changes that you're up to make that world a better place dream come true.
That sounds great because one of the things we talk about being the best, and we do want to be the best, but we also must remember that it's okay. It's also encouraged to make mistakes. And so, what I do on a day to day basis is help people realize that, hey, that's okay. Don't worry about it. What can we do to make the situation better? And it's not a problem, it's not a negativity, but it's a challenge that when we go from day to day, we're always thinking about what is our reality? Where are we focused? And when we are doing that, what solutions can we create? So if we go about that on a day-to-day basis, instead of thinking negatively, too many times we walk into a room and we say, "Oh, that picture's crooked. Oh, it's cold in here. Oh, that wall's blue. Why isn't it green?" Instead of walking into the room and saying, "Oh, the picture's crooked. Can I help you fix it?" That picture may be crooked for a reason. We don't know, but it's accepting life as it is and quit trying to change others. And I think as you were trying to make the point earlier, we change within ourselves first.
Mhm.
We can change that negativity to a positivity. And we walk into a room, walk into an office, we see somebody on the street. Do they have, quote unquote, too many tattoos? Do they have too many earrings? Do they have too many of whatever our expectations might be? It's not for us. We may like it, we may not like it, but it doesn't mean we can't appreciate others for who they are. We
Yeah.
may not want to be that way. I would never do that. And that's okay. But it doesn't hurt to compliment someone on what they've done with themselves or their lives, right?
Right. Certainly does not hurt to provide compliments. Like woman that I have very dear friends with says, wear your smile, it's your best asset. And I do believe when you smile at people and you make your presence felt as a positive one, whether that's verbal or nonverbal, like just your body language, it really changes interactions. Because if you go into it with the mindset of like, this is not going to go well, this is going to be a fight or a struggle, you then take on that energy and that's what you're putting out there into the world, into
Exactly.
your day-to-day interactions, because we're wired to see anomalies. Like our uh, reptilian brain, the thing that keeps us safe, right? The thing that keeps us from, taking risks that, affect that could possibly kill us, right?
Yes.
It is wired to find things, not look at the 99% that's all good. It's geared to find the 1% that's off. It's also a very big asset for us when we are looking to find solutions to things, because we see what's going right and maybe we take it for granted. We'll get to that in just a second. But we also are able to recognize patterns and see possibilities for solutions. Have you ever seen that graphic that's, it's 99 zeros and 1 1? And
Mhm.
within seconds, your brain finds the number one,
One.
maybe
Mhm.
milliseconds, right? Because
Okay.
that's what we're programmed to do, is to find the problems. So if you recognize that
And again,
finding
that's our
problems,
thought it's a problem, and it may not be a problem, but
or
that's where
anomalies, right?
anomalies.
Yep. So, and if you're always looking for problems, that's what you're going to find. What we look for, we find. So, when you say, be positive and approach your life and your work in a way that you get to experience positivity, it's an inside job, isn't it?
It is an inside job. I like that, and I appreciate what you said earlier about what's it, a reptilian brain?
The
That's
amygdala.
the situation that we all need to be able to think bigger, because I think what you were saying too, Alissa, is when you walk into a room and you see people with a grumpy face, where does your thought process go? Uh-oh, something's wrong. Uh-oh, something's not working right now. And then that's where we go instead of being in a smiling face, even when things aren't perfect. Like you said, we need to be our best, but we need to also understand that when we make mistakes, again, it's still okay. Because if we're making mistakes, that means we're doing something. As I joke with my better half, my sweetheart, she says, trying. I said, well, if you're trying, what percent is complete? Because if you're trying, that means you've done something. Doesn't mean it's just, ah, if it's just a thought, then you haven't done anything. But if you're trying, that means there's a percentage going forward that you can be happy about. Even if it's just that 0.01%. Here's what
Yes.
I have done. Be happy about it. Let's take it to the next step. Let's get to 0.02. What can
You
we do to
know,
get there?
Yeah, there's a book that I'm in love with lately called The Gap and the Gain, and it's Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy that wrote the book together, and it's about measuring the successes backwards in order to inform your next steps, because so often we look at where we are yet to go, the gap where we are still lacking, and that puts us very squarely into lack thinking. But if you turn around and you look in the rearview mirror, how far have I come? And you measure the gain, you measure the things that you've already overcome and accomplished and progress that you've made, that puts you in a state of mind to be able to live inside of that energy and notice opportunities to get more of that. So when I work with my clients, we start with a wins list. We begin almost every call with, since last we spoke, let me know all of the victories that you've had. Sometimes I task them with doing a victory log at the end of
Right.
every day, because I personally have found that that is one way to prime success for the following day, to just write down all the little wins. I went swimming this morning. I got up on time. I made it to all my appointments, even though
I
I
made a great
felt.
cup of coffee. I
Exactly. And acknowledging those steps, because when we start with wins, when we start with acknowledging what's good, it primes the pump. It sets the stage for, all right, well, what am I up to now? What are my goals? And when you're looking at your goals from a place of being full of that, like, awareness that you've accomplished or that you're progressed, then looking at what you have still to do, where you'd like to train your focus, it becomes more palpable. It becomes something that hits the ground a little bit more firmly. So in your work, I know I see your Venn diagram up there. Would you call it a Venn diagram if it's got, 5 or 6 circles in it? Or what do you call that graphic image that's up over your right shoulder?
That's right. I just call it my logo because that's my
Oh,
logo. Reality focused dynamics, success focused solutions, creating solutions one reality at a time. But can I touch back on just something that you mentioned?
yeah.
Because you talked about your win list. And
Hmm.
if more people would take that word task and turn it into win, here's my task list to my win list, just like you're saying, those tasks are your wins, because when you get them done, when you complete them, you've won something. Pat yourself on the back. Be happy to say something about it, like you're saying. Check that win off. Don't check the task off. Check the win off. And you also mentioned the gap. What is a gap? To me, a gap is an opportunity for a bridge. That's all a gap is. Who doesn't like bridges? The San Francisco Bridge. There's so many beautiful bridges in this world. Who doesn't like to be on a bridge and look out to the sides and see the world? So every gap is a view of another beautiful horizon, right?
Yeah, I mean, I moved from Long Island where I had a bunch of bridges that spanned bays and channels to Pittsburgh, where there's like so many bridges per square inch. I think it's the highest concentration of bridges in the country, but it's so
Wow.
true. A gap is an opportunity for a bridge. I love that phrase.
Yes, it is. And I'm from the Denver area, Brookfield, Colorado, but we're down here with my family now in southern Mississippi. Every time you go anywhere, like you're saying, there's bridges everywhere because there's a lot of water down here. But that new New Orleans bridge they built after Katrina, beautiful, 6 lanes total. You take off across Lake Pontchartrain, beautiful view. And of course, gorgeous sunsets in the evening or sunrises in the morning. But to be on that bridge, it's a huge bridge. And then there's the Lake Pontchartrain Bridge also. It's a narrower bridge. I think it's one of the longest bridges in the world. But to get on there going across that bridge, you can see things from a different perspective. And if you take that to a positive perspective, you can build the next step and where you want to go. Where is your next step? When you can see like that, it's easier to picture those advantages and then get back to writing things on your win list, right?
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? The apex of a bridge from one side of the chasm to the other is the highest point. But isn't that interesting that you have to be already working to traverse the gap in order to be able to see that new vantage point? It's like
Wow.
standing on the shoulders of giants, that economic principle of like the winds that have come before you, you get to hold as your foundation and basically see a new destination from that height. Same thing when we're talking about gap traversing that gap and looking at it as an opportunity to get in motion because oftentimes people are scared to
Hmm.
start to bridge a gap because they feel like the bridge isn't already there. I don't know what it's going to take. There's a whole lot of fear that comes up in that what am I trying to say? Inside of that idea of like
Hmm.
bridging a gap. So, what have you experienced in working with people when they're sitting on one side of the gap going, oh my God, this is bringing up so many insecurities, so many fears, so much lack. I don't know how I could possibly get over it. How do you address that?
Great. That's a great point, and I love that because it comes off of, like you're saying, an insecurity and sometimes an immaturity, which is not a negative like in childish, even though sometimes it can be. But the immaturity is just a learning, well, what can I do? What are my next steps? And that comes from that quote, fear, Fear. A lot of them, people are saying it's false evidence appearing real, Fear, false evidence appearing real. I call it false evidence about reality, Fear, false evidence about reality. As you saw with my cup earlier, reality focused. What is the reality ahead of us? So when you're standing on the edge of that bridge and you have that fear, how do you conquer that first part of the fear? Where do you need to go? And that's educating ourselves. We don't want to just say, oh, I can't do it. Don't let that fear, that false evidence about reality, because that's not a reality. Because if you can't do it, it's because you're choosing not to do it. There are things that you can do, and that's where I come in with my achieving unity. It takes others. If you want to do something, don't try to be Superman or Superwoman. Call in the team, call in your friends, call in your partners. It may be a family issue, maybe something, I don't want to say issue and negative, but maybe a family discussion, maybe a friend's discussion, maybe your team, your partner, your division, your department. It may be, as I mentioned, the world, but call in some people. Start working together. So if you're on the edge, if you see a gap, you may need to know that you might need to go down to the bottom of that gap first. That's where you start building that structure because you have a foundation down there to work from. Once you start there, then you just build up. And then everybody's looking up and they see the solution, just like we see on that win list, right?
Yeah, and what's interesting is I find that the imagery of you have to go down into the valley to build the structure for the bridge. Because what I think a lot of hesitation, at least in my own experience, of looking at that gap and that span, going, how the heck am I going to do this?
Yeah,
It requires you to go dig a little deeper. It sometimes requires you to face those fears or those limitations in thinking or past experiences that we have judged ourselves for having failed. It's like we have to reassess those experiences. What is actually standing there and waving the fear flag are actually a handful of opportunities to say, I wonder how this can be useful right now. So, for
right.
example, the story that I tell about my unemployable stretch in my financial services career was that I kept going headlong into things that I thought were exciting, and then I hit a boundary where I couldn't progress any further. I couldn't continue to create solutions because the environment wouldn't allow it, or people weren't willing to buy into that kind of engagement. And I kept, okay, I have to pivot, and I would quit the job and go start a new one in another bank or in a wealth management position. And again and again and again, I hit this wall where either didn't fit me, I wasn't a right fit, they weren't a right fit, and then I would go ahead and do it again. For so long, I had shame about being a quitter, where what actually was happening was I was courageously moving and identifying things that didn't work, and I was not settling for something that wasn't fulfilling for me. So I had to reverse engineer that failure identity and say, okay, I'm afraid of becoming a failure now that I'm ready to jump full in, even though it looks like it's scary or I don't necessarily maybe know all that I need to know to create this bridge. But I had to like reverse engineer and empower those memories and say, no, I didn't quit. I wasn't a quitter all these times with doe-eyed uh, enthusiasm going in, and then shameful identity label on the way out that it didn't work. No, no, no. I use those experiences to say, oh, I'm really good at changing when something doesn't work. I had to redefine it for myself in order to make it not a fear and a stop sign, but more of, oh, okay, so I've done something like this before and it turned out differently than I imagined it at the outset. So when I get to the other side of this bridge, it might look different. And I have to accept that as I'm in motion, I'm going to learn more things about that other side. And
And when you
building,
talk about that,
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. Then when you talk about that, one of the ones I work with is the terminologies that we use,
Mm.
because many times we think about words and we say them, but do we truly understand them? And I help people with that word change, because we have change, which they say is inevitable, and things do change. Life changes all the time. So what are we going to do to turn that into an improvement? Change is short term, improvement is long term. So we improve our life. We're going to take that life step, that life learning that's going to go with us wherever we're going. So we don't go back to just that small change that worked for a little while. Oh, it didn't work forever. That's because we only did that small change. We didn't improve it to carry it forward, right?
Right. And like that's the smallest changes. We sometimes have to we make mountains out of molehills. Like let's be
Yes.
honest, we're humans, right? We look at things and we're like, "Oh my God, that experience was terrible," or that was so overwhelming, or but when you look back in hindsight, it's 2020. Not the
It
year.
is.
We're not going there. When we
Mhm.
look back in hindsight, our vision becomes crystal clear as to how we get to use that experience, to use that assessment and change it over time. They say memories aren't static things. When we recall a memory, our brain remembers the last time we remembered it, rather so than the original experience that we had. So if we've remembered things over and over and over and over and over again, what we're actually remembering the next time we recall that memory is the memory of the last time we remembered it. So we're constantly, we have knowing that it's like not poor me, I'm not encoding things into rock here. No, no, no. I have the opportunity to redefine, reassess things. It's a gift that we have encoded into how our neurons fire and how our brains are wired. These are opportunities for us to redefine those memories and make them mean something that is supportive to where we're going.
And I
So,
like the way you say redefine.
yeah.
Redefine them so you can look at them differently so that it's not that fear, that false evidence. It is actually looking at the facts, the reality of what you're up against, making that change, turn that change into an improvement. Because sometimes we do have to make those small changes to find out what works best. Again, knowing that when we're doing what's best, we are going to make mistakes, but start that change, turn that change into improvement. It will keep rolling forward. So it's take the molehills to the mountains. It's one of those situations where it's the inverse of a gap, because in the gap you have to go down. So it's an opportunity for a bridge. Who doesn't want to climb mountains? Again, living in Colorado, we have Pikes Peak. There's some beautiful mountains out there. Who doesn't want to climb to the top of a mountain and look at the horizon? And that's so beautiful. So we
Yeah.
do want to climb those mountains. We do want to get up there to be at the top and be able to see what so many others haven't seen. And then once we've seen it, we start making those small changes, turn those into large improvements, and our tomorrow is better as we make the world a better place.
And I love that. This is so great segue into what I kind of want to ask next. And it's, who do you do this kind of work for and where can they find you? Because the work that you're up to in the world is changing lives. And when you change one life, you change all the lives that are connected to it. So, who specifically do you want to reach out to you and where can they do that?
Alyssa, thank you so much for that because that's one of the things people say, well, you must have a niche. You've got to have a niche. Well, sometimes that niche is working personally with people, and I do work with business people, small businesses, entrepreneurs. I also work with people going through divorce and custody issues and parenting time issues. So I started some of those processes, but then I built it into associations and then corporations, and then organizations that are large organizations that, again, like you said, they want to start with that first small team. Start work with the first two people, 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. And as that part starts growing, and then now I'm working more with universities. I want to start building it with universities because how many of our college students, and I'm a part time instructor at the University of Denver, an adjunct instructor. I teach business for the master's program, business and technology, IT. And once we start feeding that first person, because as the saying goes, we're most like our 5 closest friends, which includes family. And it could be 3 closest friends, it could be your 10 closest friends. But the people you're around the most are the people that you act like the most. Well, don't forget that they have 10 friends also, or 5 friends, or 3 friends. And that still stretches out and builds in what we're doing. So I work with all areas in different facets because unity is so multifaceted in what I do. The best way to get in touch with me is mark@markentrekin.com, which is my email. And you can go to www.markentrekin.com to get to my site. And I put on courses every quarter. I have a course on achieving unity. I have another one coming up in what's called Agile, which is a process of breaking things down to the smallest part to make things the smallest, I just forgot the word, smallest
Components.
component. There's a word for it. I'm missing it right now. And I build on those. And then, like I mentioned, into the divorce and custody issues. I build those courses together to help people grow smallest viable, smallest viable product, smallest viable piece. And because everything that we do, everything that we work, if we break it down to that smallest viable point, then we can correct it. It's easier to correct. It's hard to start climbing that mountain or filling that gap when we look at the whole product. But if we take that first grain of sand, we take that first step up that mountain, that's where we go. Minimum viable product, MVP. Sorry.
There
That's
you
what,
go.
yeah, that minimum viable product. We talk to that very minimum and you handle that first. That's where you can build to the next one. And that they talk about a grain of sand is just so small, but everything starts from that first step, that first grain of sand, that first piece that you want to take that first step to complete and grow forward. So please reach out to me, mark@markentricken.com, or go to markentricken.com on the internet. I would love to talk to you soon.
Great. Yeah, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So thank you so
So
much
true.
for your focus there on universities, families, and business owners, because I think that, what the world needs now is a whole lot of problem solving versus problem identification.
And,
And
and looking for that solution. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but that solution, because everywhere you go, there's a problem.
that's
That's
right.
what makes the solutionizing work. So when you
That's
find
right.
a problem, break it down to a minimum viable product or service and take it forward, like you're saying, one step at a time.
One step at a time, right? We don't have to see the whole staircase, just the step in front of us. So
Or step
thank
in
you
front
so
of
much
us.
for coming here and for
Alissa, thank
being with
you.
me for this conversation. It's been lovely, and I'm looking forward to seeing what ways the world gets to be resolved here out by listening and pivoting in today's age of disruption. This type of thinking, it seems sometimes like, oh, I'll get to that later, but it is the being part of who you show up as that really makes a difference into all the strategies and the tactics that you get to spend your time, spend your life, spend your business doing. So I encourage you to reach out to Mark and survey your world. Where are you doing more where you could be being more, and find the opportunities to create solutions, because the world isn't full of problems. The world is full of possible solutions. So until next time, friends, rise and shine, and I will see you. We broadcast every single Monday, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So don't miss another episode. Click like and subscribe so that you can have these conversations come right to your news feed. And we are so grateful to have you here. Let us know in the comments what has been most valuable for you. Thanks again, Mark, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.